wrapping up the discussion of running Mac apps on your iPad. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is sponsored by Upstart, fair and fast personal loans. Go to upstart.com/MacVoices and find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments. This is part 3 in a 3-part MacVoices live conversation about running Mac apps on your iPad, whether you should be able to, whether you can, whether you could, and whether it's a good idea. The panel took on this topic with a vengeance, looking at consumer issues, looking at developer issues, and looking at technical issues as well. They discussed their preferred platforms, why the fact that some apps and some utilities run on one platform and not another is driving them, or at least restricting them, to certain platforms, and a whole lot more. So we're going to go right back to them for a wrap-up of this rather intense discussion.
Well, but as I was mentioning, you could just make a Mac OS sandbox so that at least you could do that stuff within your app, within your Mac apps. You wouldn't be able to save stuff accessible for iOS apps because Apple just don't do that.
But then you have to remember, which device am I on and which are the capabilities that this one has.
There are people right now, I know people, I've done it myself, that run Macs on VNC on their iPad. So then you obviously have to remember that, well, that's not this, computer. People, I am in no way suggesting that this is going to take over and everybody's going to use their iPads this way all the time. In fact, I would think that maybe if Apple did this, they might say it's only on the M1 iPad Pro, and maybe even sell it. Like, oh, here's our, $199. Oh, you can run Mac apps now. And it would just be for a small, fraction of people. It's certainly, not going to be, you're going to run your and that's, like Guy was saying, oh, we'll just, make the iPad run Mac OS. But the problem with that is Mac OS is very pointer based. It's not touch based. And as soon as you, get rid of the pointer, then all of a sudden you've got a brick. So I don't see them doing that. They need to, add it in a way that it's optional. So if you're, running Mac apps, then you take your, Mac off and start your iPad off the keyboard and you start using it as a tablet. Then you can just swipe up and the Mac apps all disappear, whoosh, just like when you're switching iOS apps. And, so all the Mac apps would be in one thing that you swipe up.
Sandbox.
Yeah, in a single sandbox, and just when you swipe up to get out of the app you're in, then you're out of the Mac environment.
So, I mean, maybe this is just a little bit pedantic, but I guess part of my point was earlier, now that they are running all the same hardware, what is the difference between a Mac app and an iPad OS app now?
What's the difference between a Mac app and an iOS app?
I mean, I guess like I was saying, maybe Apple could put Mac apps on the iPad now, but maybe it's just my own kind of thinking here right now, but instead of trying to port one app from the other, why not just build a more powerful app on the iPad so it's completely native?
Well, but we've had 10 years and notice it's not really happening. It's really hard to do. And basically I would say from a developer point of view, the difference is Mac apps are using the AppKit framework and iOS apps are using the UIKit framework at the top level. And the AppKit has things like Windows, for starters. And UIKit doesn't have that. Really there's a question about, well, will they ever merge the operating system? They did it. It's, Mac OS 11, it completely includes all of UIKit in it. So when you launch an iOS app or you launch a Catalyst app, it's basically brings up a window, which is AppKit, but then under that, they've made UIKit run in that window. So the iOS app thinks I'm running UIKit, which is iOS. And that iOS app or Catalyst app, well, actually a Catalyst app can break out and access AppKit. But if it's an iOS app, it doesn't even know that it's a Mac. It doesn't know that Mac OS is running or AppKit is running. It just says, oh, I've got an iOS device and its size is the size of the window and it thinks that's the device size. And it thinks it's running on an iPhone or an iPad because all of UIKit is actually included in Big Sur. So, what I'm suggesting is, well, they already did that. They could do the reverse and include AppKit in iOS.
Yeah, that makes sense now, I think.
But it would be kind of a different user interface of how do you make them work together reasonably. For iOS apps, it's pretty easy because they just know about this window and that's their world, and they don't know that the rest of the Mac is even there. But it's it's kind of the same idea though of like a VNC. It's like that iOS app thinks that's the whole world, and it's just like you can share your iPhone screen to your TV or to another device. You're basically sharing your app is running in this sandbox and it's sharing into this AppKit window.
Hey, Jim, it sounds to me as a non-developer, so clearly I'm qualified to talk about this. Instead of talking about let's make the iPad into a Mac, it sounds like you're like what's coming out of this is let's just make the Mac into an iPad.
Well, that was sort of Guy's thing, and I think that would be great. I would love that. I mean, because if they made the iPad boot into Mac OS, well, you can already run iPad apps because Mac can run iPad apps, right? And it would run better because they'd have touch. But I think they won't do that because, the sandbox and also the problem of what do you do with this iPad when it doesn't have a pointing device attached to it? So if the
fingers are the pointers.
Yeah, but that sucks. You come up and you've got a menu bar, which is tiny. And although, there was a lot of, last year, everybody was noticing, why did they make the menu bar spaced out more in Big Sur? They added spacing so that they're further apart. Why did they do that? Are they thinking that it's going to be, for a touch only device? I don't know. That seems kind of.
Chuck's called me on this before. You said it sucks, but it sucks for you. It sucks for a particular type of Mac first users. It doesn't suck for people that the only device that they've ever grown up on is an iPad or
no.
Or an iOS
Are you saying I said it sucked?
Your words were because it sucks.
No. What I was saying sucks is not iOS. I love my iPad. I have an iPad right here. It's an iPad Pro. In fact, somebody was saying, developers wouldn't buy iPad Pros. I use it for hours a day. I love it. No, what I was saying, if I was forced to use macOS by touch on this, that would suck.
I'm sure that there are people that
I'm sure there are people that would do it.
That say, the fact that I have to use this gigantic computer screen and I can't touch it, that sucks. That I have to use this little mouse-like thing.
I think it would be great if macOS supported touch. I'm not against macOS supported touch, but macOS, I think one thing, is sort of macOS is pointer first, and iOS is touch first. So, you're talking about, how to define, I think that's one of the ways to define the platforms, not looking at frameworks and stuff. So, sure, sometimes I reach out and I want to pinch my, my Mac screen, and it would be great if you could do that or scroll or whatever. But, Mac OS is primarily, it's primarily pointer, and I don't see that changing. And I don't see Apple saying, "Oh, here's your iPad, and it's going to boot into this pointer first device," but it's not guaranteed to have a pointer on it. I might be okay with that, but I don't see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Apple is never going to sell a device like that. That's what I meant by sucked. I meant Apple will not sell that device.
We're all almost pushing 90 minutes here, and I want to make sure we give everybody a chance to introduce themselves on the way out. But I one final question to the group, and that is, because this is my judgment after listening to this, I think this is an echo chamber argument. I'm not convinced that there is a horde of people out there just waiting to run Mac OS apps on their iPad, or necessarily even iOS apps on their Mac. I think that the general public, and that's what we keep forgetting or keep overlooking, is that Apple has this huge user base that has nothing to do with the echo chamber.
I wonder how many iPad Pros are sold. What's the percentage of iPad Pros out of the total of iPads?
I don't know. And that may change.
Apple doesn't tell us that, but it's, when talking about market share, I think the iPad Pro is probably a fairly small chunk at that. Most of them are probably this low end.
It's safe to assume that the number of iPad Pros Apple sells is enough to make it worthwhile to keep making iPad Pros.
Oh, right. But I'm saying, Apple makes Mac Pros, and they said they're going to continue making it. I guarantee you, you talk about how many people want that. It's not very many.
Yeah, that's true.
And this may be a turning point. This putting the M1 in the iPad Pro may be a turning point for better or worse. Maybe there will not be enough sales to justify continuing that powerful an iPad. I personally don't believe that, because I think that this opens up a whole new area for filmmakers and for audio engineers and everything, and as well as business people who will get business level, pro level apps. I don't know what they'll be. I don't know if they'll come from Apple. I don't know if they will. We've already named some of them, but I think they will show up. And I personally think they will show up more likely now with that. Jim, I heard everything you said about it doesn't matter to a developer, but I think whoever said it may have been Brittany. There's a mindset there. And I think this may tackle that. So I think that the iPad Pro will continue for quite some time, just in for a different reason maybe than it has up to this point. So this Mac Voices is sponsored by Upstart. Fair and fast personal loans. Go to upstart.com/MacVoices and find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments. Are you carrying a credit card balance month after month? You're not the only one. High interest rates make it hard to pay off your debt, but there's an alternative to those rising monthly balances. Join the thousands of happy borrowers who have made that final payment by checking out Upstart. Upstart is a leading artificial intelligence lending platform designed to improve access to affordable credit. Unlike other lenders, though, Upstart looks at more than just your credit score, things like your income and your employment history. That means they can offer smarter rates with trusted partners. And that means that you get to that final payment sooner. Is a 5-minute online rate check worth it to see what your rate can be? You can see that rate upfront for loans between $1,000 to $50,000. Do it right now as that first step to your final payment. I want you to find out what your options are. Visit upstart.com/MacVoices. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today. That's upstart.com/MacVoices. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Upstart.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Upstart for their support of MacVoices.
But it doesn't
Brittany?
really set the tone if Apple hasn't made their own Pro apps yet. It only starts to set the tone. If Apple still has none of their Pro apps on there, they have sent the message that it wasn't a priority to them.
What are you talking about? Keynote's been there for years.
Uh-huh.
Well, Keynote
Watered it
pages.
down.
Solitaire? No, wait, no, it's Surface.
Nice.
Yeah. Yes, Surface does a mean solitaire. Yeah. And Brittany, that put you in the penalty box earlier in the conversation when you said, what, the Mac Surface or something. I wanted to just, it's like, okay, mute Brittany for 30 minutes.
The joke.
So, guys, this always happens. This was supposed to, originally this was an hour show, and somehow I'm trying to get it back under control a little bit.
It's when.
But
I warned you, Chuck. I told you we maybe shouldn't bring this up.
I had no idea it was going to go like this.
It went well.
But I am going to do one thing that I never do, because something always happens when I try to do this. But I will say this. If you're listening to this, folks, in the feeds, you're going to want to look back an episode or two, because before this will appear in the feeds, I will be talking to the people from LumaForge, the makers of LumaFusion, about some of this and having their app on the M1 iPad. So that's scheduled for real time for me tomorrow. If everything goes well, it'll be in the feeds before this show will show up. So, and because LumaFusion seems to be one of the poster children for the last several discussions about this, that this is a pro level app that is on the iPad, and I agree with that. So I'm anxious to talk to them and see what their thoughts are. How many LumaFusion users here?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I own it,
can't
but I've
believe
never
it
done
costs
anything.
only $20.
I used to use it, and now I switched to Final Cut.
But not on the iPad.
No, not on the iPad.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
That said, there's an argument there. I might have gone to LumaFusion on the Mac if it existed.
Can you run it on an M1 Mac?
Yes,
I don't have an M1 Mac.
you can.
I didn't
I've got
mean
it right
you.
here.
I meant, can anyone? Can it be done?
Yes.
Yes, I've run it on LumaFusion on Mac.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Making it harder for me to not buy an M1 Mac.
And
They're fantastic machines.
Talk to me after the show and I'll give you some reasons.
a question, because I don't have an M1 Mac yet. When you run it on a Mac, is it sandboxed?
I don't know that yet.
Or can you interact with other, share with other Mac apps? I think you can.
From
I think
the
it's
Mac App Store. I don't know.
right. Well, Mac App Store
try.
apps can normally share. So, but is it from the Mac App Store or the iOS App Store?
Yes.
they-
You click on the iPhone version thing when you do the search in the App
Right.
Store.
Okay. Right. So it's not a Mac. They haven't made a Mac app.
No, it's not a
No.
Mac first.
Right.
It's
an iOS
don't
app.
uncheck the box.
Right.
So let's go around the room, let folks know where they can find you when you're not here. And I once again, I want to thank you guys all for being here. I want to thank the folks in the chat room. They were a little quieter tonight. I'm not sure. I think we may have intimidated them or just made them spellbound. I'm not sure which, but thanks, guys. This time I'm going to flip it around and go from the bottom up. Mr. Frank Petrie, where can folks find you? Hello, Frank. You're muted.
Oh, he's having problems.
Oh, Frank can't unmute. Okay, we'll come back to you, Frank, when you can get unmuted. Andrew Orr, where can folks find you?
You can find me writing at the Mac Observer, macobserver.com. I'm writing about Apple technology, specific subjects like, security and privacy. Kelly Gamont and I have a security podcast episode every weekend, every Friday. So we talk a lot about that. You can also find me on Twitter. My username there is Andrew or Not.
Great. Thanks for being here, Andrew. I'm glad you got in because your suggestion for the topic folded in very nicely with this.
Awesome. Yeah, glad I could be here.
Yes. Pastor Miller, where can folks find you?
So you can catch me around Twitter at KJY Miller, and right now I'm kind of roaming on podcasts as I'm shutting down a few of my shows and starting some new ones that are in pre and post production. So be on the lookout for all of those fun things.
Good. Once they're up and running, please let us know about them. We definitely want to make sure people know how to hear more from you. So interesting. Mr. Jim Ray, the guy that sparked all of this, thank you for being here and thank you for the suggestion.
How dare you, sir?
Yeah. Where can folks find you?
I think after this episode, I am on the run. You cannot find me anywhere.
Good, Jim.
But if you look, you might find me at proview.com, where I write software, and on Twitter at ProviewJim. Yeah, at ProviewJim. That's it.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, everybody get him. Guy Serle, thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
What are you doing as if I didn't know?
Well, VertShark and MacParrot is the Twitter handles. Guy at mymac.com is the email address. What else? There's the mymac.com podcast, been going on for over almost 11 years now. The Mac to the Future livecast on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as on an increasingly infrequent basis, Guy's Daily Drive, where I drive and talk in my car. So, yeah, there's that.
Do you ever have people look at you as you talk in your car and wonder what you're talking, who you're
just
talking
the police. To? Just the police.
Okay. Oh, good. If it's just a police then.
What is he doing?
Yeah.
Can we stop him? No, don't stop him. Don't. Drive away. Drive away.
Jeff Gamet, thank you for being here. You've had a couple projects going recently, and I'm delighted that you were able to come tonight.
Oh, yeah. Well, as always, thanks for letting me in. I show up and I'm always pleasantly surprised when you let me into the group. So thank you. And yes, I've started making some videos because big surprise to everyone, I just have a lot to say. I had a video planned to post today, but I ran into a weather-related issue because I needed to shoot part of it outside, and it started raining on me. So that one's coming tomorrow on Wednesday.
Great.
But you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm JGamet both places, and videos are going up on YouTube, and I have more stuff in the works too.
Great. Good to have you as always, Jeff. Mr. Ginsburg, thank you for being here. What's going on with you?
Yes, I have my podcast, of course, In Touch with iOS and In Touch with iOS.com, and I will be hosting two wonderful guests, Mr. Jeff and Ms. Brittany, on Thursday night that we'll be recording. So this is going to be quite an episode, but I'm looking forward to it. And
Dave,
you can also find me.
It's a thin line between a brave man and a fool.
Yeah, it is. It is. You'll also find me on Mac to the Future Go livecast that Guy mentioned on Wednesday nights. We do that. I'm on the Mac Show with the British Tech Network on the Fridays, and president of the Suburban Chicago Apple Users Group in Chicago, and we do that. And on Twitter, you can find me at DaveG65. Thanks as always for having me.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Last but absolutely not least, we saved the best for last, actually, if the truth be known, Ms. Brittany Smith.
Hey, Chuck. Thanks for having me. On Twitter, I'm ADD Liberator. My website's conquer.consulting. This week, I'll be on In Touch with iOS. And early next week, I'll be doing my first appearance on Taking Control of Your ADHD podcast, where Pete and I worked very hard not to go too in the weeds, but we do talk about some nerdy apps and stuff for ADHD.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. That's terrific. We'll be looking forward to learning more from you in those areas. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices Live. Again, we do this Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, on YouTube, where you can watch us and participate in the chat room, as our friends have been doing tonight, and we really, really appreciate it. And if you can't do that for some reason, like time zones, like you need to be asleep while we're doing this live, that's fine. The shows show up a little bit later in the feeds, slightly edited, but they are there, and all the good stuff is there. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.